What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in effect. Purple State Party, you know what we're doing here. Repping America, the center, and common sense. Today, we're going to look at what happens when you take big ideas, mix them with no experience, and you end up with the big backfire. So let's get this little show popping. All right, we're going to kick it off with a few quick bites here. I'm sure you've heard Ron DeSantis ended his presidential campaign. Clearing the way pretty much for Trump, I guess. I guess that's what it means. Only time will tell. I don't think his political career is over. I heard a wise man say that he saved it by dropping out. And probably true. Probably true. I guess we live in a culture now where the policies and the ideas are trumped by personality, I guess. I guess Biden represents all of the young radical ideas out there about climate change and equity and inclusion and all that. And, Trump is America. He is the Sergeant Slaughter of the political world right now. And, maybe, I don't know. I still don't think both of them or at least one of them will be running. But let's go on. This was surprising to me. I mean, not that Joe Manchin declined to back the resolution supporting the two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but John Fetterman joined in. I'm starting to wonder if Fetterman might not be a little bit worth a little bit more. Maybe we've underrated this guy a little bit. I mean, he is kind of a kook. But the problem is with this two-state solution is that doesn't solve the problem. It does nothing, and it's more concessions to the evil people. Speaking of evil people, my job's doing fire alarms. I recently went to a site that had no phone lines. So in other words, if there was a fire, the smoke detector wasn't going to call the fire department. The sprinklers would go off. The bells would ring, but I don't know if anybody's going to show up. And why? Because thieves climbed up a telephone pole and stole block after block of telephone wire for the copper. Recently in Compton, they vandalized and took the brass and the copper plates that were on gravestones, including war memorials. And now I read this: copper thieves tear down Oklahoma County radio station tower, causing $500,000 in damage for $100 worth of copper. They shut it down. Copper theft is a big problem, especially in rural parts of the country. I be honest with you, I didn't realize that this was going on. I knew this was happening in Los Angeles, and I guess in other big cities, but, they're taking electrical wires to car chargers. Well, that's going to put the whole EV thing into problems. And if you got a gas vehicle, they're stealing your catalytic converter. But they're going after infrastructure. Okay? And they're doing it to buy drugs. Like this author says, then it's off to buy drugs or whatever else they're doing with the money. I'm guessing it's not going to charity or towards putting their kids through school. But what do I know? The people who are just being allowed to build these sub-societies out on the streets are the people behind this. This is the kind of stuff that, some time ago in the past, New York City started focusing in on the broken windows. You start with the small crimes. You cut those off and it sends a message. But what can the cops do? Because nowadays, there's a guy up in Washington who shot up a power station, had illegal weapons, and he's going to do a year in home detention. I'm glad they're giving him the opportunity to clean up his life, but where's the punishment? Where's the message being sent? From the DA all the way down. The message is you're going to get away with it, so they're fucking stealing phone lines and gravestones. What next? Because when all that's gone, the next thing that's going to be is businesses. And when the businesses react and change and make it so that there's no more copper or whatever there, or it's harder to get to, They're going to come for the homes. And make no mistake, these people are rats. They will get in. They steal underground line. I've seen them steal huge sections of sprinkler piping. Pipes so big it would take several men to carry it off, and I don't know how you're driving off with it. But meanwhile, this fucking guy, Senator Wiener, wants to introduce a bill to physically stop cars from going 10 miles over the speed limit. Fuck you, man. This is more of the shit where they just, in the name of safety. And I love how he says it. I don't think it's an overreach, and I don't think most people would view it as an overreach. We have speed limits, and I think most people support speed limits because people know that speed kills, Wiener said. Yeah, well, Dick, okay? First of all, it is an overreach. Second of all, the people who agree with you are non-American, okay? They have sold out to the communists because the government does not need to tell us or force us to do everything. A lot of people out there drive the speed limit or around the speed limit. I don't need my car being limited that way. That's government overreach. And I'm sure it will be shot down. But it's there. It's what these people think about. All right, now we're going to start looking at some backfires here. Law banning plastic bags in blue state backfires as plastic consumption skyrockets. This is in Jersey. Single-use plastic ban has proven unsuccessful with a new study showing that plastic use has tripled. Congratulations. And you know why? Because they're forcing reusable bags. All right? And they're made with non-woven polypropylene. It's not widely recycled, okay? It's not an easy thing to recycle, and it doesn't typically contain post-consumer recycled materials. And it has resulted in a notable environmental impact. Yeah, I guess contributing to a 500% increase in greenhouse gases compared to the old bags, because it takes more to make these thick bags. That's the simple fact. When you remove these thin, cheap bags that you would get your groceries home in, put some dog poo in, throw away, boom, it was better for the environment. And we kind of already knew this going in. They knew this, but they wanted to virtual signal, and now it's backfiring because now you have thicker bags that take a lot longer to degrade out in, the world. And so now more and more of them can blow into the ocean. These are these big ideas that are just being followed through with because they sound so good. But yet, every time the government tries to do something, like down in Salton Sea, look that one up, with the lithium mine, environmentalists step forward and make people do environmental impact reports. Where is the fucking impact report on this stupid plastic bag switch? It's ridiculous. The stores profit, the politicians get to look good, and the rest of us are ending up with just bags and bags of bags that never break down. You're never going to... I use my dog bags for dog poo. That's 2 uses. I don't know what you want me to do. That's 2 uses. I sometimes try to stretch the bag being used for the poo for a few rounds without getting too gross. But come on, man. You should have known. You did know, and you went ahead with it. And now it's backfiring. Another huge backfire. This goes under the backfire of voting for Biden because he wasn't Trump. Okay? Politico's reporting. Biden says he'll shut down the border if Deal gives him authority. So the border's on? The border's open? You keep telling us the border's not open, but now you're saying that you'll shut the border down? It's very confusing. He urged Congress to pass a bipartisan bill to address the immigration crisis at the southern border while vowing to shut down the border the day he signs it into law. Kind of makes you wonder what must be in there if he's going to play such hardball, huh? What's been negotiated would, if passed into law, be the toughest and fairest sets of reforms to secure our border that we've ever had. Biden said in a statement, it would give me, as president, a new emergency authority to shut down the border when it becomes overwhelmed. And if given that authority, I would use it the day I sign the bill into law. The border is open. He just said so. The border is open. Backfire. All of your Democrat cities who talked about being sanctuary cities, right? And remember, let's keep in mind, sanctuary cities originally was more along the lines of, if you help the police, they won't inquire into your immigration status. If you are injured in a car accident, they will not look into your immigration status. Fair. Makes sense. Good to go. What? So you're not going to convict child rapists and murderers? You're not going to hand them over to ICE? Oh, great. That's where we've gotten to. And now we have this giant backfire. These cities are overrun. And I don't use that word lightly, but they are overrun. When you see the scenes around the country of migrants sleeping in bus stations and airport terminals and kicking out high school students so that they can use the high school to house the migrants, the only word that applies is overrun. And I'm sorry about that. Believe me, I wish it was different. And then when Texas, who's probably the most overrun state in the union, puts up razor wire to stop people from just swimming across, the Supreme Court says they must take it down and that the U.S. government can take it down. This doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's a big first step towards the implosion of the country. All right? This is how the American Revolution started. Little things that chip away at people's pride and independence and feeling safe. Once you've had enough, it's easy to walk away. I just heard that on PragerU. Texas has had enough. All right, yeah, Texas is not going to secede from the Union, but what if, I don't know, a confederation of states decided to leave the Union? What could they do? What could they do if everything from Texas to Florida backed out of the country? Yeah, there would be some issues, but possibly that coalition would be willing to take that risk because they have no other option. Love this one. Legendary Bronco, U.S. border being guarded by Texas. It's illegal to keep us from breaking the law. And I really do think Mayorkas, Biden, and their administration is violating the greater law in the United States. They're not doing anything to discourage it. And in fact, they are doing lots of things to encourage it. Free room and board, food that they complain about. And the perks just keep going up from there. Free health care in California, cell phones from do-gooders. It's crazy how much that side supports all of these illegal aliens. And that's what they are. They're illegal aliens. I don't care if you change the words. You can change the word, but the meaning's the same. I use a thing called Smart News on my phone. And I thought it was kind of funny how there's a little slider at the bottom, and you can move it left and right. When you move it to the left, you get an article like, Supreme Court won't let Texas kill more migrants with razor wire. This flood continues. That's the only option. I'm sorry. Then you go all the way over to the right. Texas refuses to vacate border area, puts up more wire in defiance of Biden administration. It's a different way of looking at it, isn't it? But Texas is fighting back. Texas finds loophole with new super ouchy pokey wire. If your state's being overrun and the U.S. government isn't doing anything about it, what are your options? You don't have options. Most people have the fight or flight response. Well, what happens if you can't fight anymore? You have to fight. And that's where Texas is right now. Supreme Court rules it's illegal for National Guard to guard nation. That about sums it up. I mean, it is a full-on invasion. We're talking upwards of 6, maybe even 7 million people coming here. Some of them definitely deserve to be here. Some of them don't. And then, on top of this border mess that he's created, Biden now wants illegal immigrants to fly without proper identification. You see, to me, this is one of those things that signals the greater conspiracy. All right? They've opened up the borders. They've made it known. People are flat out paying money to get here from all over the world. They're entering illegally. I don't know how many are going to show up to their trials or their whatever amnesty hearing, I guess you could call it. But he wants them to fly. And part of the regulation is that they have to have their photo. No, they don't have to have their photo taken. That's optional. That's ridiculous. And to me, it sort of shows that perhaps there is a bigger overall forces at play here that are actually trying to destroy America. I don't know how else to put it. You're doing things that are weakening us as a country and as a society, and some of your states and cities are playing along. We're rewarding criminals across the board. We're punishing people who are doing the right thing and excusing the people who are doing the wrong thing. Here in California, you have to be 21 to buy alcohol, but you could be any age to just steal it. Oakland In-N-Out relocating to safer location in Gaza. If you haven't heard, In-N-Out Burger is going to close the doors on its Oakland. This is the first time they've ever closed one. And it's not over lack of profits. It's out of control crime. Statistics right there, 38%. Robberies up 38%. So where there was once 10, there are now 14. Burglaries. Now there's, instead of 10, there's 12, almost 13. Vehicle motor theft, almost 44%. They're leaving. And right there, the location will shut its doors in March, despite the burger spot turning a profit. The mayor of that town, I don't know her fucking name. She didn't file paperwork to receive government aid in fighting crime. She turned the CHP away. They're now trying to do a corridor, and they're going to have one officer walking around, and they're going to try to stop the crime in the corridor so In-N-Out can stay. Did the same thing with the A's. Oh, the Oakland A's, the Oakland Raiders, Oakland itself. I'm not a fan of Oakland. Just, hey, I'm a SoCal guy. But this is sad. This is absolutely sad. It happened in Frisco. It's happening in Oakland. It's a death spiral because instead of realizing that your crime policies backfired, you doubled down. You doubled down. That's like wishing for something and then wishing for it again. Wishes don't do shit. I'm sorry that you have to, as mayor, do tough things. But you got your police force down by 50%. I don't even think you have a police chief right now. And they're trying to send bills to business owners who are getting robbed. This is senseless. This does not make any sense. Here's another one. Makes no sense. And oh God, the backfire on this one. Biden's climate czar dodges when asked point blank how blocking natural gas projects will lower emissions. One of them that they were talking about is, big win for the environmentalists. Good, yeah. But they want to shut down liquid natural gas exports. It appears that individuals within the White House are trying to force policymaking through leaks to the media. That's what a spokesperson for an energy developer said. So even if this thing gets squashed, it still gets out there. And now the environmentalists want to put a moratorium on the entire liquid natural gas. And how, skip over that one. Such an action would shock the global energy market. And the true irony is that the policy would hurt the climate and lead to increased emissions, as it would force the world to pivot to coal or go back to getting it from Russia. See, we have been supplying Europe with LNG, which has allowed them to tell Russia to go F themselves. And on top of that, our liquid natural gas is about 30% cleaner than Russian LNG. I hate having to say this kind of stuff. Does this make any sense to anybody? I mean, we're going to the environmentalists want to cut Europe off, which will lead to Europe pulling out of Ukraine because they now need to get their gas from Russia and they need the conflict to end. And the fastest way is basically just to, convince Ukraine to go to the bargaining table, I guess. And it will backfire. And again, here's another example of the backfire. All right? What's happened since California cut home solar payments? Demand has plunged 80%. Because people are no longer pulling in the same amount of money from selling back surplus power to the grid. So this is a person speaking on top of solar, or on behalf of solar. The market is in the gutter. It should be no surprise to anybody. If you're in a business and your market took an 80% nosedive, with great pain, you have to lay off. And what are we talking? 17,000 workers. And you know what pisses me off about this? Joe Biden and his fucking team getting out there and saying, don't worry about losing your jobs in fuel and coal and all of that. Go out and get yourself a nice, clean, green energy job. Well, 17,000 people have done that. I know people who have done that. These companies had all this upfront money. They bought fancy cars and paid everybody really well. Didn't really train them so much. Basically got people who knew somewhat of what they were doing, and they started putting them in. They started selling off these leases that they had to financial institutions. And you know what's even grosser? Because they were leasing the panel to the customer, they're the ones who got the 30% tax credit. And you know what they did? Because they didn't need all those tax credits that they got, they sold them. More on that later. I want to do a more deeper dive on solar someday. But, man, look into it because it was a shady business from the start. And now the people who have these ugly things up on their roofs, they're going to have to maintain them or have them removed. And then that's just a bunch of shit that we don't want in landfills going to landfills. Not well thought out. But it all stems from the fact that it's just no longer a financial advantage to put a solar panel on your roof. That's why. That's why this all happened. And experts, of course, they're worried that this will stall the state's battle against climate change. Da 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 da. Moving too fast. Large-scale and rooftop solar is projected to provide more than half of the grid's power by 2045. And they want to move to 100% carbon-free electricity by 2045. But their plan is large-scale and rooftop solar is projected. I guess they're including farms and wind and all this other shit. But no. No. Here's an issue in California that affects the farmers and the people in one way of thinking, let's just say predominantly Republican. And they're concerned about water because they need water to grow their almonds, okay, to make your precious almond milk. Water is scarce in California. The groundwater is rapidly descending. And instead of trying to collect more water or, do more to get more water, collect it somehow, let's just say, no one in the Senate race is even talking about it because the people in the city don't give a shit. The elites know that they will be getting their water. Imagine if the average household began to not be able to afford water. I'm going to guess that is going to severely affect the very people who vote for these fucking idiots. And one of those idiots is a former Dodger, Steve Garvey. This is something that is important to the people in your party. And it is important to the people who can see beyond the end of their nose what the future could hold if we don't solve the water crisis in California. Are we going to lose our agriculture? Well, part of the reason why we have the agriculture that we have is because we live in the right climate here in California. A lot of what California grows for the nation, even the world, would have a hard time and be very expensive elsewhere. Why are they not talking about it? Why is Garvey not making it a point? Hey, Bronco taking us out a little bit here. It could be worse. Trump could be president again. That's what it's coming down to. Despite negative reviews, Trump versus Biden renewed for second season. I would like to see a true third party try to split this, try to get down the middle with some good ideas. I like that effect. Oh, fuck yeah. I don't know if that's going to happen. We're getting closer. I haven't seen anything yet that really makes me, get worked up for any other candidate. And the worst part is I think they're going to slide Newsom in. And I think if you look back, honestly, at some of the points that I've tried to make, you'll see where it's backfiring. I am not against environmental reviews. I'm against the abuse of them. I'm against the length of them, the time involved, the money involved. I think, because of things that I've seen, we could figure these things out faster. We have the technology. $6 million man reference. Didn't think you'd hear that today. And if you don't know what it is, look it up. That's how I learned everything. I look things up. This is not what we want. I think if we're honest that for the most part, the government that we have is not the government that we want. Just look at things differently. Get smart news and slide the articles back and forth. Listen to both sides. Try to figure out where this will all go wrong. I think that's the smartest thing I can tell you. In life, always look at what's the worst case scenario. You don't have to act on it. You don't have to get nervous about it. But face it and let that be more of a beacon than just some random shower idea. I'm Kid Copious. I'm Purple State Party. And so are you. Love one another. Don't be dumb and drink your water. Those are YouTube references. Look them up and dance it.